But looks like everyone's there. All right, guys, everyone. It's 5 p.m. So we'll go ahead and get started here. First and foremost, thank you all of you for taking 20 minutes out of your afternoon, evening to be here with me. My name is Isaiah Real, financial advisor with Laguna Wealth Advisors. And in the next 20 minutes, we're going to go over the 3 steps to learn if you are retirement ready. So in the next 20 minutes, the agenda is going to be this. We're going to talk about how successful retirees knew when it was time to retire for themselves. We're going to learn about the 4 to 6% rule and how that can set you up for success now, before retirement, and once you enter retirement. We're going to talk about how to keep that portfolio of yours growing while you're retired, maintain during your retirement, and if you so choose, grow that for your heirs and for your legacy and then some. And then last, we'll end with Social Security. We're going to talk about the questions you must answer when you're thinking of Social Security and when to take it for yourself. Okay, so let's start here. What should we be focusing on when it comes to retirement, when it comes to retirement planning? You and I both know there's a lot to go over. There's savings and mortgage and how to grow the money and taxes and medical expenses. It can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. And what we found is because there's so many different pieces of the puzzle to make your retirement, 64% of Americans are not prepared for retirement. Now, I think that because you're here and because you want to learn more and do the best for yourself, I don't think you're part of the 64%. But what we found is that because there's so many different pieces to the puzzle, we need to simplify it. We need to narrow it down for ourselves. And what we found is that if we can simplify it to these 3 steps, these 3 questions: have I saved enough? Will my money last? And when should I take Social Security? If we can narrow it down to those 3 questions and answer them for ourselves, we're going to set ourselves up for success entering retirement and in retirement. So that's what we're going to talk about here in the next 17 to 18 minutes for ourselves here. So let's start with this. Have I saved enough money? We ask ourselves that question, of course, the few years leading up to retirement. Gosh, I've been putting monies away. Have I saved enough? To answer this question for ourselves, there's 2 steps that we need to take. Let's talk about the first step together. We call it KYN, know your numbers. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is this. We need to know exactly our numbers for our retirement savings. How much do we have saved in our 401ks, our IRAs, our ESOP plans, our 403bs, our lump sums and pensions, whatever it may be? We need to know that we have that number in hand at all times. You'd be surprised when I talk to people, they don't know how much they have in their retirement plans, in their retirement accounts. As we get closer to retirement, we need to know that number. Second one, fixed costs and retirement costs. Cash flow is king, folks. When we enter retirement, we need to know how much we plan to withdraw to maintain the type of lifestyle that we want in retirement. And that dives down to fixed costs and retirement costs. We're going to talk about that here very shortly. We need to know debts, what we owe on a mortgage, credit cards, car payments, whatever those may be, whatever liabilities we have, we need to know how much that is and when to pay that off. And of course, Social Security. You get your estimates from the Social Security Department. What is going to be at 62, full retirement age, whatever that may be for yourself. You need to know that number. Now let's dive deeper. Fixed costs and retirement costs. So what are these? Again, like I mentioned, cash flow is going to be king for you. When you enter retirement, you need to know how much you want for your retirement to maintain the type of lifestyle that you want. So in order to do that, we need to know our fixed costs and we need to know our retirement costs. Now let's start with the fixed costs. What are those? It's the mortgage. It's your rent, groceries, anything related to the car, maintenance, gas, you name it, that kind of stuff. Debt, utilities, electricity, trash, water, sewage, whatever that may be, and of course insurance. Those are just a few of them. But we need to know what our numbers are, what our fixed costs are on a monthly basis to, in a sense, keep the everyday regular life that we have. Now, once we know our fixed costs, we need to know what our retirement costs are going to be. That's the fun costs. You've worked too hard not to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So we need to know what you want to spend for travel, for vacations, to spend with the family and your hobbies and everything else. So when I sit down with folks, I ask them, well, what's your lifestyle going to look like when you retire? What do you want to do? And they start naming off, oh, I need the mortgage, I have the debt, I have this. Like, no, no, no. Yes, include that, but also too, what do you want to do in retirement? Add that in there so that when you receive that distribution each month for your retirement, it includes the money so you can go golfing, you can spend time with the grandkids or the kids or whatever that may be. So we need to know before we retire, we need to know what our fixed costs are. We need to know what our retirement costs are. Once we know those two numbers, that creates our retirement lifestyle number. So now I encourage you to jot this down. And this basically, in a sense, this is going to be a budget for yourselves. Write this down for yourself before you retire to know how much you need on a monthly basis. But this is going to be an important number because we're going to come back to this now in a few minutes. But you need to know your retirement lifestyle. That's the first part of answering the question of do I have enough money saved for retirement? Now let's talk about the second part, the percentage test, the 4 to 6% rule. Now, you may have heard of the 4% rule before. Expert professionals have talked about it for decades. The 4% rule basically, in a sense, is if you can withdraw 4% from the total amount that you have saved for your retirement plans, and you can live off of that, the odds of the balance of your retirement account lasting your lifetime and then some is extremely high. Now, professionals, experts have been arguing over that now for years, the 4% rule. Is it outdated? Is it up to date? My own personal opinion, because of what's happening in today's day and age, if we can stay in between 4 to 6%, we're going to be in really good shape. So let's talk about this further. How do we calculate this for ourselves to see if we can withdraw between 4 to 6% of our retirement portfolio? Because if we can, that's going to check off the box and definitely answer the question of, have I saved enough money for retirement? This will do that. So how do we calculate it for ourselves? There's a formula. And if you want to take notes, feel free. Tomorrow, I'm going to send you a recording of this webinar and the notes for it. So if you want to just watch, feel free. If you want to take notes, go for it. But the first thing we have to do to see if we fit in that 4 to 6% marker is we have to know, again, our retirement lifestyle, our annual retirement lifestyle. So make a note of that. What are we going to spend on an annual basis for our retirement? You're going to want to divide that over what you have saved for your retirement, so your retirement savings. When you divide that, that's going to give you a fraction. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to multiply that by 100. And hopefully that number gives you between 4 to 6%. Now, let's go over an example here. Let's say Joe's planning for his retirement. He was able to save $1.5 million. Him and his wife sat down and they said, you know what, Isaiah? We agreed upon that we need $7,000 per month to live off of for retirement. And that comes out to $84,000. So what they did was they did the percentage test. They divided what they needed per year, $84,000. They divided that by what they have saved for retirement, which is 1.5. They multiplied that by 100, and that came out with 5.6%. They're within that 4 to 6% marker. What that means is that they've been able to save enough money for retirement, $1.5 million, to pay for the type of lifestyle that they want in retirement. So again, I'll repeat myself. If we can do this for ourselves, and if we're in that 4 to 6% marker, that tells us right off the bat that we have enough money saved for our retirement. Now let's switch gears here a second. Let's say Joe wasn't able to save $1.5 million. Let's say he only saved $1 million, which is still a good amount. But let's say he needs the same amount per month, $7,000, and he needs that same amount per year, $84,000. He plugged in those numbers again, 84,000, a million bucks, multiplies that by 100, and what did that come out with? That came out with 8.4%. So he's not within that 4 to 6% marker. So when that happens, what does that mean? Well, number one, that means that perhaps we don't have quite enough money saved in our retirement accounts to pay for the type of lifestyle that we want. But there are things that we can do. So if we don't fit that 4 to 6%, what options are available to us? What can we do? Well, there's a few things. Number one, if you see on the top, is we can wait. If you're willing to wait another year or two for retirement to save a little bit more to pay for that lifestyle, that's an option. Another one, and probably the most popular version, is Social Security. Now, again, if we don't make that 4 to 6% marker, maybe you take Social Security earlier to pay for that offset. Instead of maximize Social Security, maybe we take it earlier. Or maybe we look at our budget. Instead of going golfing 8 times a month, maybe we can knock that off to 7 or 6 times a month just to save a little bit more for ourselves. Or maybe there's other sources of income. On the bottom left, it looks like a monopoly house. Maybe you have some rental properties. Maybe you can use some of that income to pay for your lifestyle. And also 2 pensions. I know some employers still offer pensions. If that's available to you, maybe that's another way of getting to that 4 to 6% marker. But there's many things that we can do. And again, that 4 to 6% range, if we can get within that, that checks off the box, and that tells us off the bat that, you know what, we have enough money saved for retirement. So that's the first step of knowing if we are retirement ready. Now let's talk about the second part. Now that we know we have enough money, how do we make that money last for ourselves throughout our retirement? There's 3 things that we can do. Number one, you already know, the 4 to 6% rule. Again, if we can stay within that range, that's going to give us a very good chance of success. But there's 2 others, an investment process and regular communication. So let me explain to you what those mean. I highly advise to you, regardless if you're looking to do this on your own for retirement or if you're looking to work with an advisor, have an investment process in place. Let me share with you a quick story. I had a client 4 or 5 years ago. She loves Disney, to say the least. When I walked into her house when we became clients, she has Disney stuffed animals everywhere. She had posters. She had the DVDs, the collections of everything. She gave me a cup with Mickey Mouse on it. She loved Disney, to say the least. So she was telling me, she kept calling me up saying, Isaiah, Disney stock. And this was at the time when they were making Star Wars Land and the Star Wars movies and the Avenger movies, those superhero movies and everything else. She was telling me, Isaiah, they're coming out with Star Wars Land. They're going to have the Star Wars movies. They're going to have the Avenger movies. Disney stock must go up, right? I mean, it has to go up, right? What is she doing? She's hoping, she's wishing, she's guessing. When it comes to your retirement accounts, we cannot hope, we cannot wish, we cannot guess. There's no room for error. When you retire, you're not going to have that paycheck coming in every couple of weeks. So when it comes to your investments and when it comes to making money for yourself, you need to have a process in place. So this is the process I use with my clients. If you want to copy it, feel free, go for it if you're looking to do this on your own. But I'm going to share with you what I do for my clients. And again, I highly advise you have some type of process in place. The first thing that we do, and we do nothing special, what we focus on is sectors of the market. So when we're looking at investments for clients, is the investment, we go and we do these check boxes in this specific order. Is the investment in one of the strongest sectors right now? Yes or no? Right now, the strongest sectors are technology, energy, think clean energy, and just consumer discretionary. When I say that, think of restaurants, think of shopping, think of home building, think of auto sales, that kind of stuff. So right now, those are the 3 top sectors. If the investment we're taking a look at is not in one of those 3 strongest sectors, we're going to pass on it for the time being, because we want a vote of confidence knowing that the investments we're taking a look at are strong right now compared to what's happening in the markets. Once we know the investments in the strong sectors, well, we want the best investments within those sectors. So is the investment in the top percentile of those sectors, yes or no? If it is, we move forward. Is it in a buy signal? Yes or no? I'll tell you, when my client was telling me about Disney stock, it definitely was not in a buy signal, that's for sure. So I told her, hey, you know what? Number one, it's not in one of the strongest sectors. And number two, it's definitely not in a buy signal. I would pass for the time being. The reason we say that is it in a buy signal is we want a vote of confidence. We want to know that this investment we're taking a look at, we're not hoping, we're not wishing, we're not guessing. I need proof. I need a vote of confidence that there's demand for this investment. And it looks like, at least short term, it's going to continue to move higher. Once we check off those three boxes, the fourth one is it in a positive trend? That's long term. Yes, we all know, like today, markets were down quite a bit today, but some stock market goes up, down, up, down, up, down. Never goes straight up. But what we want to know is the investment in a positive trend? So long term, does the investment continue to move higher through the good and the bad? So again, regardless, if you're looking, whether you're looking to do this by yourself or with an advisor, I highly encourage you to have an investment process, because I'll tell you what, last year during the coronavirus, this process came in very handy. It's easy to invest when the markets are easy, not so much like what happened last year with the coronavirus, 08, 09, dot-com bubble. So I highly encourage you to have some type of investment process in place for your retirement money. That will help you make that money last long term. And the third thing I suggest you do, regular technique, is regular communication. Again, whether you're looking to do this by yourself or with an advisor, review the portfolio. I suggest every 4 to 7 weeks. Has the portfolio up or down since we last spoke? Why? Do a market update, but funnel the information to what pertains to your money. If something's happening in India that has zero to do with your portfolio, don't look at it. Let's say you have technology investments in your portfolio. Well, China's had a lot to do with technology. Maybe I should pay attention to what China's doing and how that relates to my technology investments. Goals. All of us have goals. Whether it's a specific dollar amount that we want in our portfolio, or if it's a specific amount that we want per month for our retirement, make sure your goals are in line with what your portfolio is doing at that moment. And life updates. We all know life always changes, but especially when you retire. Maybe we'll have some new additions to the family. Maybe we'll relocate, move. Something's going to change our lives, and we have to make sure when those life changes do happen to us, again, our portfolio is up to date with what's happening in our lives. And then I suggest at least once a year, do tax planning, estate planning. You want to minimize that tax burn as much as possible. So I highly suggest doing that at least once a year. And estate planning. Are your beneficiaries in order for your retirement accounts? Do we have a trust or a will? And if so, does it need to be updated? Yes or no? Again, do that about once a year. But if we can combine those three things, the 4 to 6% rule, an investment process, and regular communication, that's going to allow us to make that money last for us as long as possible. And all of that right there doesn't take that much time. You just have to schedule it into the program and do it, like I said, every 4 to 7 weeks for 10, 15 minutes, and you're good to go on that end. And of course, you can always get more detailed, but that's the technique that's going to help you make sure that money lasts for yourself. Now let's talk about the last part here. When should I take Social Security? Isn't that the big question for everyone? There's 3 things I suggest that you do. Ask yourself these questions. Why, when, and how? Why should we take Social Security? There's 2 sides of this decision. There's the emotional and there's the financial. Let me share with you a story about the emotional. I had a client retire in 2019, the beginning of 2019. He was 62, so he was available to take Social Security. He was on the fence. He was saying, Isaiah, I'm thinking of taking Social Security, but my older brother, he's 66. He told me to hold off. I don't know what to do. He decided to hold off. But every single time we did our reviews, he kept bringing it up. Isaiah, I'm thinking about it, but I'm not quite sure. And then one day, his best friend at his job that he used to work at died on the job. The next day, my client called me up saying, Isaiah, I'm taking Social Security. I'm not going to wait. We don't know what tomorrow brings. I want that money now so I can use for myself, so I can use for my family, so I can use for memories, and heaven forbid something happens to me, that money is available to me. He made an emotional decision. That's one part of it. Also, too, there is financial. What if we need the money earlier to pay for our cash flow? Again, going back to that 4 to 6% rule, maybe we do need Social Security to pay for our lifestyle upfront. Or maybe we do have the flexibility to hold off and delay taking Social Security and let it maximize for ourselves. So that's the first question you should ask when it comes to Social Security. Why am I thinking of taking it? It's more emotional, or is it more financial? When? And this is the big one. When should I take Social Security? Should I take it earlier, or should I take it later? Now, if you feel any of these bullet points pertain to you, you may want to lead in that direction, and we're going to go over them together. If we're thinking of taking Social Security earlier, here's a few of the reasons why people tend to take that. The need for benefits for extra cash flow. Again, going back to that 4 to 6% rule. If we don't make that rule and we need some more cash flow, Social Security may be that answer. The fear of missing out, FOMO. Again, going back to that story of my client. We don't know what tomorrow brings. We might as well take that money now and have it for ourselves because we don't know what's going to happen 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Health is a factor when thinking of Social Security. Maybe you or your family has a poor health record. Maybe you should take the Social Security now to get that cash flow, and maybe you can pay for medical expenses that you'll have currently. Or again, a little bit of the FOMO, fear of missing out. We don't know what tomorrow brings. We might as well take it now because our health is wavering a little bit. And this last one, and this is actually a little more of strategy. In fact, next month I'm going to be hosting a Social Security webinar. But if you and your spouse are both continuing to work right now, perhaps the lower earning spouse takes Social Security now, so you have cash flow, and the higher earning spouse delays Social Security so that they maximize their benefits as much as possible. That's another option. Now let's focus on delaying. What if we take Social Security later? Maybe you still love to work. You love what you do. Might as well keep going if you love it. Delay Social Security, let it grow for itself. That's an option. Maybe you have enough retirement savings in place for yourself that you don't have to worry about Social Security for cash flow. You have the opportunity to just wait and let it grow for you over the next few years. Again, going back to health, maybe you and your family have a long and healthy track record. By delaying Social Security, that may help you down the road because if you have a longer life expectancy, that money can pay for medical costs down the road. It can pay for a whole lot of things. And then lastly, again, going back to the higher earner, perhaps if you're the higher earner, by maximizing those benefits, number one, it allows you to get that cash flow, larger cash flow later in life. But also, too, heaven forbid, if something happened to you, that highest Social Security dollar amount, by maximizing it, it gets passed on to your significant other. Now, if we're looking at delaying Social Security till later, this is where how comes in. How do we come to that decision for ourselves? How do we do that? You may have heard of the break-even point before, or break-even calculators. You may have talked to coworkers, family, friends, and you may have heard that, Isaiah, I've heard that Social Security, it takes 10 to 15 years to recover what you could have gotten if you took it at 62. This is probably what they're talking about, the break-even point. So we're going to go over an example here. And you can do this yourself too as well. There's break-even calculators online. You can go to Google. Investopedia.com has a great break-even calculator. Also, too, Smart Asset has a great break-even calculator. You can use those to see where you stand. But let's go over an example together. Let's say that at 62, and this is from this, let's say, for example, the Social Security Administration gave you these projections. At 62, it's going to be $1,200 for yourself. At 66, it's going to be, I guess the numbers got cut off there, but it's going to be $1,700 for full retirement age. And at 70, it's going to be $2,200. So let me repeat that. At 62, it's going to be $1,200. At full retirement age at 66, it's going to be $1,700. And at 70, it's going to be $2,200. Now let's say, you tell me, Isaiah, I'm going to wait to take Social Security until 70 years of age. Well, if you wait till 70 to start taking your benefits, it's going to take you until 79 to break even with the benefit amount you would have received if you started taking Social Security at 62. So let's dissect that for a second. What's all this saying? Well, number one is if we make the choice to delay Social Security until 70, the latest year that you can, number one, it's going to take you 9 years to get the money that you could have received if you just started taking it at 62. But here's the second thing, and I think the most important part, is that you're not going to see a positive return on your investment for the decision to delay Social Security until age 79. So I pose the question to you, is that worth it to you? Is it worth it to wait till 79 to see a positive return on your investment for the decision to delay? Now, let's say you told me, oh, Isaiah, I'm not going to take it at 70. I'm going to take it at 66. I'm going to take it at full retirement age. Okay. Well, if you were to start taking it at 66, it's going to take you until age 75 to break even with the benefit amount you would have received if you started at 62. So again, I pose that question, is it worth it to you to wait till 75 to see a positive return on that decision to delay Social Security? Typically this right here, this break-even point, really puts the nail in the coffin for folks to say, you know what, I'm going to take it later or earlier. And again, there is no 100% correct answer when it comes to Social Security. It's really going to be based off of the peace of mind and what makes you feel the most comfortable on that end. So again, when thinking of Social Security, think of the why, think of the when, think of the how of Social Security. So in summary, what we've gone over here in the last 20 minutes or so is how successful retirees knew when it was time to retire. Number one, they knew their numbers, that's for sure, what they had in their retirement accounts and what they needed on a monthly basis for their retirement lifestyle. What they did was they plugged in those numbers, the retirement lifestyle and what they had saved, into that 4 to 6% rule to check off the box and answer the question for themselves of, have I saved enough money for retirement? We know now that how to keep the portfolio growing is we need to do a few things. Stick to that 4 to 6% rule throughout your retirement of distributions. That will definitely help prolong that portfolio. But also too, do regular portfolio reviews, whether it's by yourself or with your financial professional if you choose to go that route. And also to make sure that you have a communication strategy for yourself as well. And again, going back to that process for the investments. And lastly, Social Security. Make sure you make the right decision for yourself. What gives you the most peace of mind? And that's why I say answer those questions of why, when, and how, and that will lead you in the right direction for peace of mind of when to take Social Security. So my friends, thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you have any questions, feel free. We will go ahead and answer them now. And also too, tomorrow, I'm going to send you an email in the morning with a copy and the recording of this webinar. But also too, if you would like to set up 15 to 20 minutes over a Zoom call or a phone call or in person or whatever, to go over your own retirement plans, I'll have a link in the email. You can click on that and schedule a time, and I'd be more than happy to help. So folks, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Enjoy your evening, and we'll go ahead and start answering those questions if you want to stay here. So thank you so much. Okay, folks, so we're gonna answer a question here, and I'll keep it anonymous, but the question is, when you talk about fixed expenses, how do you account for increased in costs for vehicles, maintenance, utilities, insurance, etc.? That's a great question. And so what we do, and I'll share with you what I do with my clients, is every year, number one, we include cost of inflation in our projections for our clients. So every year, we estimate 3%. That has definitely not been the case the last decade at least, but we still include that. And what we do is at the end of each year or at the beginning of each year, and probably in the middle of the year as well, we ask our clients, how are you doing for expenses? Do we need to increase our expenses? 4 or 5 months ago, we had a client call us up because I'm sure you've seen groceries are a little bit more expensive now because of what's happened with coronavirus. So they needed to increase their monthly distribution by $200 a month. No, not a problem. We do that for them. The money gets sent to their bank account on a regular basis. But when we talk about fixed expenses, we include inflation in there each and every single year for our clients so that when they need money, we'll increase that dollar amount for them if it's warranted on that end. So that was a question we had. Another question that we had is when it comes to if our company offers a lump sum or annuity, what typically do people do? On that end, it's up to you, obviously. People typically tend to pick lump sums because it's a larger dollar amount, more flexibility. So let's say, for example, your company gives you a $600,000 lump sum. That $600,000 is yours off the bat. Heaven forbid, if you passed away, that money is given to your loved ones right off the bat. Also to emergencies. If there's an emergency in place, then that money can be used for that. It could be used for vacations and everything else. So people typically use the lump sum because it provides them more flexibility, provides them a little bit more peace of mind. And if they want to, they can use that money to invest. The annuity, I would suggest annuities for people who are extremely scared of the markets. If they do not want to be a part of the markets, annuity might be the way to go. One rule of thumb, though, that people sort of don't think about is look at your annuity from your company because they may not include a cost of living adjustment. Actually, that goes back to the last question, inflation. Most of them don't include that. Whatever dollar amount you see, if you're looking to retire, that's the dollar amount you're receiving for the next 20, 25, 30, 35 plus years. So that dollar amount may look nice now, but what about 10, 15, 20 years from now on that end? So that's a question in regards to lump sum versus annuity. Another question I see here is on the investment side, what do you think of the markets right now? Long question, but I'll tell you my initial thoughts is right now, we're going through a little bit of a market correction. Markets are down quite a bit today on that end. Big picture, we have corrections about 2 to 3 times a year, meaning the stock market goes down by 5 to 15% per year. Happens 2 to 3 times a year. So it's actually fairly common in the markets. When those times happen, it's important to not listen to the talking heads. Again, it goes back to the investment process. Actually, look at your investment process. Are you in the right investments? Yes or no? Is the investment sound? And what's moving forward from there? I think right now in this day and age, we're going through a market correction. I don't think we're quite done with this. We may go down maybe perhaps by another 5% on that end. But again, it's the first correction we've had in a while, really since the beginning of the coronavirus. So we were due for one. I'm not overly concerned on my end, but nonetheless, these things happen. They're common. And then the last question I'll take here, I'll let you guys go, is Bitcoin, gold, or silver a good thing for retirement accounts? I've been asking this question quite a bit, or I've been asked this question quite a bit. I know I tend to think, yes, I know some about retirement planning, but I also too am smart enough to know that I don't know anything about Bitcoin. I do know some, but not enough to give great advice. I do think that's too volatile. So when it comes to retirement accounts, I highly suggest not to invest in that because you may be doubling your money one day and then losing all of it the next day on that end. Gold and silver, I do believe they have their place, depending on what you're comfortable with. It's a nice little hedge. And I'll tell you this, inflation's going to go higher soon because of all the money that the government's looking to put out here for the economy because of what's been happening. Gold and silver may be a nice option because typically when inflation goes higher, those commodities like gold and silver, they typically go higher too as well. So great question, folks. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I look forward to hopefully talking to some of you soon. Enjoy your evening. Take care and have a good one. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.